Daniel Parker had always dreamed of owning a quiet home where he could finally relax after years of city living. When he moved into Maple Ridge Estates, the small, neatly maintained suburban neighborhood seemed perfect: tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and friendly faces. The HOA rules were strict, sure, but Daniel didn't mind. He figured they kept things orderly. For the first few months, life was peaceful. He spent his weekends tending to his small garden, sipping coffee on the porch, and chatting with neighbors. Everything changed one Saturday morning when he stepped outside to water his plants and felt something was off. He paused at the edge of his yard, hose in hand, staring at the fence that divided his property from Karen Wilcox's, the HOA president's. It took him a moment to realize why the view felt strange. The fence seemed closer than before. The distance between his flower bed and the wooden posts had shrunk. He set the hose down and paced it out. 6 steps yesterday. Now, only 4. His brow furrowed. That didn't make sense. Daniel went inside and pulled out the survey map from his closing documents. According to the diagram, his property extended 3 feet past the current fence line. He walked back out and looked again, crouching to inspect the soil. Fresh dirt. The posts looked recently dug in, the bases too clean, the paint too new. Someone had moved his fence. He called over his next-door neighbor, Jim, an older retired contractor who had lived there for years. Jim squinted at the posts, rubbing his chin. "That's not where it used to be," he said firmly. "Karen had a crew working late last night, said they were fixing the alignment for HOA compliance." Daniel felt his stomach twist. Without his permission? He hadn't received any notice. He knocked on Karen's door, but no one answered. Her porch lights flicked off as if she knew he was coming. He stood there, fists clenched, staring at her perfectly trimmed hedges and neatly labeled mailbox. Something wasn't right. Back inside, he sat at his kitchen table, anger simmering. If Karen thought she could just take a few feet without him noticing, she was mistaken. He pulled out his phone and made a note to contact the county office first thing Monday morning. What he didn't know yet was that this would be the start of a neighborhood showdown unlike anything Maple Ridge had ever seen. Karen Wilcox had always seen herself as the guardian of Maple Ridge Estates, the woman who kept order where others let chaos creep in. She'd been HOA president for 6 years running, and in that time, she'd molded the neighborhood into what she liked to call a showcase community. Every fence height, mailbox color, and flower type had to meet her exact standards. To Karen, rules weren't suggestions, they were sacred. But lately, one thing had been gnawing at her: the uneven property line between her backyard and Daniel Parker's new home. His fence, according to her eye, broke the perfect symmetry of her garden design. She claimed it was crooked, out of alignment with the HOA's aesthetic grid. What she didn't admit to anyone was that she wanted more space for her koi pond extension, and Daniel's land was exactly where it would fit best. Karen told herself she was doing the neighborhood a favor. She called a few loyal HOA board members one evening and explained the error in Daniel's fencing. "We'll just correct it," she said smoothly. "Technically, it's community maintenance." She used her favorite phrase, "for the good of the HOA," and that was enough to convince them. The following night, under the glow of porch lights and the hum of crickets, Karen directed a small landscaping crew to move the fence. They worked quietly, pulling up the posts and shifting them inward toward Daniel's property. Karen stood by with her clipboard, measuring tape in hand, ensuring everything aligned perfectly with her garden path. When the last nail was in place, she smiled in satisfaction. The next morning, she drafted an official-looking HOA memo stating that adjustments were made to maintain uniform property boundaries. She even signed it with a flourish and planned to slip it into Daniel's mailbox after he noticed, of course. In her mind, this was all perfectly justifiable. She wasn't stealing land, she was redefining boundaries for aesthetic harmony. Still, a part of her knew she'd crossed a line. She avoided Daniel's gaze when she saw him outside the next day, pretending to be busy trimming hedges. But her confidence quickly returned. After all, she was the HOA president who would question her? What Karen didn't realize was that Daniel was already documenting everything, and the county's involvement would soon unravel the careful illusion she'd built around her authority. Daniel didn't waste any time. Early Monday morning, he called the county office and requested a formal property survey. The clerk on the other end was polite but curious that cases like this weren't uncommon, especially in HOA-governed neighborhoods. 2 days later, a white county pickup truck pulled up to his driveway, and out stepped Mark Jensen, a tall, even-tempered man in a neon vest with a calm professionalism that instantly reassured Daniel. Mark had been surveying for 20 years. He'd seen everything from accidental boundary disputes to deliberate land grabs. When Daniel explained what had happened, Mark nodded thoughtfully and said, "Let's see what the numbers tell us." He began setting up his equipment, placing a GPS tripod near the corner markers and referencing the county's digital plat map. His tools beeped rhythmically as they locked onto satellite coordinates. Within minutes, Mark's expression shifted slightly, subtle but telling. He walked the fence line twice, double-checking his readings, then looked back at Daniel. "This fence isn't where it's supposed to be," he said. "It's been moved about 4.5 feet into your property." Before Daniel could respond, a familiar voice rang out across the yard. "Excuse me. What's going on here?" It was Karen, striding over in her sun hat and HOA badge like she owned the place. Her tone dripped with irritation. "You can't just perform surveys without HOA authorization," she snapped. Mark kept his composure, showing his county ID. "Ma'am, I'm here under homeowner request and county jurisdiction. I don't need HOA permission." Karen's face turned crimson. "This is private HOA property," she insisted, waving her hands as if to block the view of the fence. Unbothered, Mark continued his work, his body camera quietly recording the entire interaction. He measured again, marked the true line with small orange flags, and documented everything with time-stamped photos. Karen hovered close, muttering threats about violations and community policy, but Mark ignored her. Daniel stood a few feet back, torn between anger and amusement at how flustered she'd become. When Mark packed up his gear, he gave Daniel a firm handshake. "You were right," he said. "I'll file the report by the end of the day. The footage is automatically uploaded to the county server, so nothing can be disputed." Karen froze at the mention of footage. For the first time, her confidence faltered. The invisible line she thought she controlled was now in official hands, and there was no erasing what had just been caught on camera. The county report came faster than Daniel expected. 2 days after the survey, an official envelope arrived, stamped and sealed. Inside were detailed measurements, photographic evidence, and a final conclusion that left no room for argument: the fence had been unlawfully relocated onto Daniel Parker's property. The report even referenced video footage from the county surveyor's body camera, which clearly captured Karen's interference during the inspection. By the following morning, the footage had circulated through the county's public access portal, where it didn't take long for local residents and a few nosy neighbors to take notice. News spread like wildfire. Within hours, screenshots appeared on the Maple Ridge Community Facebook group, accompanied by hundreds of comments. Some neighbors expressed disbelief, others weren't surprised at all. Finally, someone caught her, one resident wrote. "She's been overstepping for years." Karen's carefully crafted image as the neighborhood's perfect leader began to crumble. Her inbox overflowed with angry emails from homeowners demanding explanations. The HOA board, once loyal to her, scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. Daniel, meanwhile, kept quiet. He didn't gloat or stir the pot, he just forwarded the county's report to the HOA's legal representative and waited. Within a week, the board called for an emergency meeting. It was held in the clubhouse, packed with frustrated residents. Karen arrived late, visibly shaken but still trying to maintain her usual authoritative composure. She brought a folder of papers and began talking about